Today's guest, Jana Williams, is the Deputy Commissioner of Procurement for the Chicago Department of Water Management, overseeing nearly $1 billion in contracts. With 11 years of city service, she is a champion for equitable opportunities for diverse businesses. Jana also serves as executive board member for Pinpoint Scholars Foundation, dedicated to empowering the next generation. Thank you so much for being here today, Jana. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing very well.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. How you feeling today?
Very good.
Wonderful.
Great day.
I wanted to just start off by getting to know you a little better, especially our viewers out there that may not know you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you like to do for fun?
So I'm from Chicago, Illinois, born and raised. I grew up on the South Side in Hyde Park, and I went to Whitney Young for high school. Then I went to the University of Missouri in Columbia for college. So I was in Missouri for about 4 years for college. I came back to Chicago for a couple of years, and then I moved to Los Angeles. When I was in LA, I worked in clinical research for Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. And it was a really interesting experience because the investigator there was working on a lot of alternative medicine studies. So acupuncture studies, meditation studies, wine studies. So I lived in LA for almost 8 years and then moved back to Chicago and found myself working for the city just by happenstance. So I started as a field analyst, and they were looking for someone with a investigative background. And that was the bridge that got me to the city and procurement. And then when I started at procurement, I was convinced by my then boss to essentially change directions in my career and move away from clinical research and make procurement my career. And here I am.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, and that seems like a big shift from the medical industry to infrastructure.
Although it seems like a big shift, it really isn't. On both ends, it's really project management and coordinating, facilitating different efforts and contracts with different teams, different people, different departments. So they're different fields, different industries, but the core principles of the work are pretty much the same.
Well, that's amazing. Well, so what was your major in college?
Biology.
Biology.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you started off when you were younger thinking you were going to go into...
Yes.
Really?
And then I did an internship at Providence Hospital. And from there, I was like, I don't think medicine is really my passion. And that's when I shifted into clinical research.
Yeah. What I love is the flexibility, right? Being able to get experience and seeing something new and different that may fit your personality, and then making that shift. So no, that's great. What's one value that you learned growing up that you still carry today?
Well, when I think about growing up and some of my core values, it really came through the church. I went to Apostolic Church of God as a child, and then Bishop Brazier was there. And through church, there was really this foundation of excellence that was instilled in me, and doing your best and essentially running your own race, not comparing yourself to other people, ensuring that, essentially I am, my biggest competition. So I'm competing with myself to be my best self. And that's one thing I've taken with me is, each day you really make yourself better and do your best.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's great. So it sounds like you're a student of just self-development, continuous learning, and then excellence. And I love the fact that, you bring up, church, or a place where you learned values, some specific values that help you in your career stay on track, stay grounded, stay working hard. These are all some great principles that that you used, and I look at you, you're doing amazingly well, right? And you're helping a lot of people in the work that you do with the city of Chicago. So kudos to you. So what about hobbies? What do you do to relax? What does Jana like to do to...
These last several years, a lot of my downtime, so to speak, has been with family, helping family, grandparents, parents. But one thing that I did as a child was play the piano, and I have a
Oh,
piano,
wow.
so it's
Okay.
something that I've recently taken up again. I read an article that people who play instruments don't get Alzheimer's,
Oh,
as much.
mm,
So
okay.
I've started back with practicing my piano. I like going to museums and creative things and the
Mm.
arts. I make jewelry, so that's
Oh, wow.
how I spend a lot of my downtime.
Okay. That's wow. Okay. So you got an artsy mind as well, like
Absolutely, yes,
music
yes.
and oh, that's nice. That's nice. Not me. I enjoy music. I enjoy listening, but as far as the creativity aspect of playing an instrument, and I remember I was in we had a band class in high school, and I was pretty decent with the drums, but some people just have a talent to hear certain sounds and
So that's not
create.
me. I don't have the talent just to hear, but I can practice and,
Okay.
through practice.
Hey, well, if it's a passion and a love of yours, then you're doing something well. So you oversee procurement activities totaling nearly $1 billion over 5 years. What does managing procurement at this scale look like day to day?
So a lot of my day to day work is meeting with other managers, understanding what the department needs, putting out fires, ensuring that things are moving along. From my role, I have to work with other departments. Fortunately, I have a really good team, and in our department, we have a lot of smart people.
Yeah.
I work with a lot of engineers, attorneys, project managers. So it takes a lot of effort to make the department work, and we have a lot of talent. So for me, it's really, managing my team, ensuring that everything's on track, tracking our contracts,
Yeah.
and it's probably not surprising, but working on challenges, problems, fires, what's
Yeah.
the daily.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay, that's the fun stuff for you.
I would say, all in all, I like my job a lot. It's
Yeah.
fun, it's interesting, it's really rewarding to see the work that you do on the
Mhm.
streets. So it's busy. The days go by quickly.
Yeah.
So I like busy.
Now you brought up work that you do on the streets. Can you give us some projects that we may notice or noticeable project that you've worked on?
So I oversaw the Jackson Park mobility contract for the city of Chicago, which is
Okay.
for the Obama
Obama.
Presidential Center.
Yeah.
Is it 31st Street Bridge?
Over Lakeshore.
Yes, over Lake Shore.
Yeah.
That was one of the projects I monitored. The Navy Pier flyover project, the bike trails along Navy Pier. I monitored that one, as well as the Riverwalk contracts. So those
Yeah.
were some big ones that were pretty fulfilling and rewarding.
Oh yeah, I love jogging on those trails and in that area. Those are some nice projects. Now, when you say the word monitor, what are you monitoring?
So for the Navy Pier flyover and the projects that I monitored, so to speak, that's when I was a field analyst. So we were on site on a regular basis, ensuring that the subcontractors that were certified with the city were there and performing a commercially useful function. So we ensured that the subs were being utilized by the primes, the subs were utilizing their own resources and managing the work, and they had a distinct portion of the work.
Yeah.
So we were there looking to see the subs, make sure they were performing, and also looking to ensure that the equal employment opportunity commitments were being met. So that's ensuring that there were enough women and minorities on site.
Okay. So it sounds like you've been doing this for a long time.
So I started in 2013 with the
Okay.
Department of Procurement Services.
Wonderful. Wonderful. No, so I am very familiar because I used to do something similar at the Illinois Department of Transportation. And you're really looking to make sure that primes are fulfilling their contract obligations to subs, but you're also ensuring that there's no pass through and fraud happening.
Yes.
Right. And that's something that's pretty big that happens. Do you have any examples of fraud that you've come across?
Firsthand, I would say no. We did see on a very small scale some companies trying to utilize city incentives. So the city has bid incentives, which artificially reduce your bid pricing just for award purposes. And we found that one firm submitted a bid incentive stating they were a city-based business, went out and took a look. Clearly, they weren't based in the city. That's probably the biggest fraud, so to speak, that we saw. And in those examples. The firm that didn't use the incentive properly wasn't awarded the contract.
Okay. That's good. I'm glad you all caught that. There was a lot of interesting activities happening, and there's a lot that I hear, as a business owner, and that I see when it comes to utilization of smaller firms and subs. And we'll touch on that later on in our conversation. The work center around increasing participation for minorities and women-owned firms. Why is supplier diversity so critical in the infrastructure industry or, in your procurement space? Why is that a big deal?
I think across the board, it's very important because when you have a diverse group of people working, you have more ideas, more creativity. For the city, especially, we want to ensure that we're being effective, efficient. And when you have a diverse pool of people to work with, it increases that. Yeah. It also increases, the pool of people who are working and the pool of people that are adding to our economy. So I think it's important that we work with small firms. And from my perspective and what I've seen is if you don't have a lot of money and you don't have a lot of resources, it can be hard to get into infrastructure and construction. So we want to ensure that there's a level playing field and that small firms can participate and larger firms can participate.
I agree. I think diversity and different point of views make a better product. So it's good that you all are making sure that you create a space where you bring in newer firms, diverse firms, people from different walks of life that can make an impact on projects.
And I think also this is an effort to level the playing field. So working with small firms and diverse firms, we're not asking that you give anything to anyone, but just ensure that everyone is able to participate. And for the government, I think a pillar of public administration is equity, and we all pay taxes. So we need to make sure that everyone who's paying into the system is able to have contracting opportunity and reap the rewards from the system.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. I am an advocate for using new firms, diverse firms, and for a number of reasons. Number one, you mentioned the equity piece. You mentioned the tax piece, and I'm a big, proponent of no taxation, without representation. A lot of times we're taxed. We're one of the highest tax counties there is, right?
Right.
A large number of African American population, but unfortunately, that population don't reap the benefits of their own taxes being poured back into communities, really infrastructure. If you look at roads, you look at pipes, bridges, these different structures, it's not making its way back to the communities that's actually paying for it.
Absolutely.
So that's where you can really leverage, or we should be leveraging and raising our voice saying, wait a minute, this is our money anyway. We should have more participation in these spaces. But then there's also human nature. When you deal with individuals, whether it's project managers or you deal with the human element, people tend to do business with people they already have relationships with. They tend to do business with people that they're comfortable with, or they tend to do business with just the same businesses repeatedly. Yes. Without looking at new opportunities to usher in new businesses, which sometimes come up with new innovation, right? Doing things differently. What I've learned working for a government agency myself, you're at this big conglomerate. The systems are antiquated. They're all just outdated for the most part. But you have people, with a lot of seniority and staff that's fixed on doing it the way it's been done 20 and 30 years ago, instead of looking at how can we do this in a different way that's going to yield better results.
Absolutely. And in my past roles, that's exactly what I saw. Project managers or departments were familiar with some firms, so they only wanted to work with those firms. And I was a huge proponent for, if you have a contract, you have to get some work.
Yeah.
So I think I was able to make some strides in that area, certainly with the RFQ contracts we have and task order contracts, just ensuring that we don't get into a cycle of just working with those who we know,
Yeah.
but open the door for anyone who we know is qualified to do the work.
Yeah. I wish it was a magic wand or a better way of just, doing this. A lot of the RFPs and RFQs are based upon qualifications. It's based upon, if you look at the requirements and the scoring requirements, and you know this, you're in procurement, a lot of the work is based upon previous experience with the agency.
Right. And if you don't ever get experience with the agency, you'll never be qualified.
Exactly. So you're locked out essentially, right?
Essentially, yes.
Is there something that is being worked on
Yes.
to kind of help alleviate that?
Yes. One thing I've seen with departments in the city is using a rotation of contractors. So when it's appropriate, if you have a contract, instead of you submitting a qualification, it's like a mini RFP every time there's a project available. Instead, everyone who's qualified and has a contract and who's in the pool, it's rotated. The work is rotated. So everyone gets an opportunity to have work. And then also we have to look at it so that, one firm is not getting $1 million worth of work where another only gets $100,000 worth of work.
Right.
So it's being looked at to ensure that everyone is getting work and everyone is getting, the same amount of work. That's if you want and are able to do the work.
And what is this called?
It's just a rotation. We just call it task order rotation. And again, it's not appropriate for every department or every type of work. For instance, maybe if you're just doing surveys and we have a pool of 20 companies that can do surveys, it'll be rotated so that everyone in the pool is able to have a portion of the work.
That's amazing. So how do you submit to get into that pool?
So the process is through the Department of Procurement Services, and they issue all of our specifications, RFQs, RFPs, competitive bids. So you have to essentially bid. But once you have a contract, then sometimes, in my experience, I would see vendors would have contracts, but 5 years, 7 years, they never get any work. So if you have a contract with the city and you've been qualified to do the work, then we're working to ensure that you actually get work.
Yeah. Okay. Well, are you aware of the challenges that these minority programs are facing?
I am.
Okay. Right now, the DBE program is being challenged and looked at as reverse discrimination due to race and gender being one of the criterias. Now there's a recertification process in which you have to recertify without using those two elements as criteria and or a designation for your company. You have to tell the agencies why you are disadvantaged. What do you think about that?
I think it's important to note that from what I understand, these programs have been developed using empirical data, which shows that certain groups are at a disadvantage, and minorities, women, for example, are not given a fair chance for contracting opportunities. And that's why these programs were developed, because of inherent racism or prejudices or just not having enough money or the resources to get a seat at the table. So there have been disparity studies done, and this has been looked at for some time. And we have seen, and it has been shown, that certain groups do not have a fair chance. And these programs have been put in place to just level the playing field. So again, I think it's important that everyone has a fair chance, and it's not just that you're Black or you're a woman, so I'm going to give you something, but these programs are so that you can work, and you're not given anything. You may have an opportunity, but you still have to work and succeed and do well to, maintain your business with the agency.
Sure. Yeah, I was talking on a previous show with Adrian, and I was discussing this. No one wants to be designated as a disadvantaged firm or a firm that needs a little extra boost, right? But in the current field, there's no way of even getting an opportunity and or your foot in the door without these certifications. So I think it's important But like you're saying, if the field was a leveling playing field, we can just come in and say, hey, here's our credentials. Look at us on paper. We are better than the current company that you are using. But the difference, going back to what we just talked about, that company has previous experience with the agency versus a newer company that's coming in and looking to do business with the agency.
And agencies also have to look at projects based upon the size. So for instance, if I say today I want a contractor to come in and replace all the lead pipes in the entire city of Chicago, we're going to eliminate a lot of small businesses because they don't have the capacity to do that. So if we say we're going to break the city up, block by block or by districts, we create opportunities for smaller firms.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of work to do, and it seems like things are getting undone.
It does. It seems like things are going in reverse.
So it seems like things are going in reverse. So there's a lot of work that will be needed. And even from the businesses, we have to really be more visible and more vocal about the changes that are happening.
So small firms, I would definitely say, need to be more vocal. When you're having problems, if you are not getting payments, if something is not working out between you and your prime contractor, there are teams of people available to assist you. But if they don't know you need help, then they're not able to help.
Yeah. It's sort of a catch-22, though. You want to be vocal. You want to say, hey, here's a challenge or issue or problem that I am having, and I would like some support in it. But then also what I think a lot of small firms are afraid of is not getting opportunities anymore because they raised an issue. And it's interesting because you'll see the bigger firms, the prime firms, they have no problem raising issues.
Absolutely.
Because they know they can come in and they're going to get the work. They're going to get a huge contract to help them do whatever they need to do and to sustain their business. While smaller firms rely on the bigger businesses to almost handpick them. Okay, I'm going to use you. I'm going to use you. No, you actually complained about payment being delayed and you didn't get paid for 9 months. So I'm no longer going to pick you. But we put too much of the power, it seems like, in the hands of the primes. What's your thoughts about that?
I would agree. And I hear firms say exactly what you have said, in that you don't want to speak up and then you become blacklisted. But in my experience, when firms speak up, we don't go out and say, oh, hey, such and such said. There's ways to be anonymous and work around challenges of not wanting to offend a prime contractor and maintain good relationships with your prime contractor. But if there's a problem, you have to speak up and say something.
Yeah, I feel like we can eliminate that entire problem if more smaller businesses was given prime opportunities. Yes. And if contracts were broken down to a size, a capacity size, or a sizable, digestible size where these smaller firms can put their destiny in their own hands versus waiting on somebody to carry.
Yes, and we are working towards that. I see a lot of government agencies working towards that in building like small business initiatives where contracts are, let's say, $1 million or less, unbundling contracts so that instead of having these really large projects, you break it up into smaller pieces. A lot of agencies still have target market programs. So when appropriate, only small firms are able to bid on contracts. So I see strides being made to ensure that small firms are prime contractors.
Yes. And I'm glad that you said that. Am aware of the target market in which, for instance, the city invites MBE firms, CBE firms to come and to submit, and then they get into a pool, kind of like that rotational pool you were speaking about earlier. And then these firms get an opportunity to participate in meaningful contracts for the city. And that's really only under this program where you're able to unbundle big projects and break them down to size so that smaller firms can get an opportunity. But they also have contracts that they're not target market, but they have the same premise where firms can submit and get in a pool. and then things can get broken down. And it's interesting because when I look at the numbers and I look at who's in those particular buckets, I don't see some of these certified MBE firms in the bucket that is really generally for everyone. And I don't know why, right? I think we have created a system where our mindset is, hey, you can only be a part of this select group and other firms can only be a part of that select group. And an issue that I see coming down, because we talked about the DBE program being challenged, the next attack will be on MBE, BEP, BBE programs, all programs, because all of them were based off of that DBE program. And if this DBE program end up going to the Supreme Court and getting a ruling that it is unconstitutional, agencies will need to pivot. In what ways do you see a pivot happening?
From my vantage point, I don't see a pivot right now. I think we will move forward until there is a substantial change, which means that we can't move forward. Aside from the program, we've already moved towards small business initiatives, which are gender and race neutral. So these things are going hand in hand currently. Yeah. And will continue. Should the MBE, WBE, VBE local programs be shut down, I believe that will just pivot into the small business initiatives or that work.
Yeah. So what I'm hoping also to see, and let's say, there's a small business initiative program or there's no program. What I want to see is more contracts being awarded directly to smaller businesses so that they can become primes. And I want that in a way to match the demographic of our population. Now, how do we get to that goal? I don't know, right?
Well, we have the goal. So that's step one. And I have gone to several procurement conferences where I was with, agencies across the United States, including Canada. And I think as a country, we are looking at this as far as government spending and ensuring that small businesses have an opportunity to participate on contracts. And there's a deliberate effort. It takes some time. My experience with the government is things move very slowly. So I believe, as a nation, we are working towards this, but it's a slow process.
Yes. I think you said it perfectly. You said that we are being taxed. This is our tax-paying dollars, so we deserve to participate in contracting and really anything of equitable measure, right? It's equity. We're paying into a system and we're hoping that we get something out of it, what we deserve and what we're entitled, right? But right now that's not happening. So I'm glad that you shared some light on that piece of information. So what does I would say good faith means to you as far as making an intentional effort to do business with small businesses, right? Let's go beyond the certifications, the small business programs, the MBE, the DBE. What does putting the right intentionality behind bringing in small businesses from all different backgrounds look like?
I think good faith efforts looks like creating an opportunity for a smaller firm. So there may be a clear subcontracting opportunity, for instance, in construction. If you're building a bridge, there's lots of trades. There are probably plenty of trades with certified firms or small firms that will be available to do the work. However, there's other industries, maybe software, for example, where your firm does everything. You don't need anybody else to help you. You don't need to sub anything out. So it's creating an opportunity for another firm to do something and to have meaningful participation on the contract. It's not just, I was going to sub this out anyway, so I'll give it to a small firm. But finding something that another firm can do, it may mean breaking up your supply chain, doing things differently, looking at how your business model is structured differently, essentially creating opportunities, not just finding holes to plug people in, but creating something for someone to do.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Something meaningful. Saying, hey, here's our intentions. We want to make sure that Small businesses can come in and partake in our spending billions of dollars. So,
Yes.
yeah, someone can come in and they can focus on the land acquisition piece. Someone can come in, focus on the surveying. Someone can come in, focus on the permitting. Someone can come in and focus on the design. But currently, the way it's set up, all of this is one big major contract, and one major firm typically comes in and get all that work. So, yeah, I would love to see more of what you're talking about.
And thinking out of the box. So maybe you don't have direct participation, but there's other ways of including small firms. For instance, if you have a building that your company is based out of and you use a cleaning service, maybe you can find a small firm to provide that service, or your supplies maybe come from a small vendor. So looking at different ways outside of the box that you can include small businesses.
Yeah.
And I think from a government standpoint, when you subcontract, it's important to note that we're not asking you to lose money or take away from, your
Bottom line.
your bottom line, your
Mhm.
profits, adding someone else to that, which ultimately I think is understood. Your pricing may go up, but you are creating opportunities for smaller firms. So,
And it's important, for folks to understand your pricing may go up, but these agencies are paying the increase because they
Yes.
want to see the participation.
Absolutely.
They rather it come from smaller or local businesses partaking in some of the contract opportunities than getting something overseas. So
Absolutely,
that's
yes.
really good to see and hear that you all are doing. I'll share with you a story that I have, and I go back to the word intentionality, right? Instead of all of these programs and firms, they're using what's called good faith effort, or what they deem as a good faith effort. A lot of times it's just sending out an email blast and saying, hey, I got this opportunity for you.
Then I didn't hear back. So, well, I can't,
Right.
sub it out.
So you know the name of the game,
Yes.
right? And there's no real intentional effort to bring new businesses on because, hey, I fill out this waiver. I said I sent out this email. No one responded. So, give me the waiver so we can continue business as usual. We were working on a project or pursuing a project, and they picked one of the primes, and the prime was really new to the area. And they asked, hey, what small local businesses and firms would like to come in and help us build out this team. This was just right prior to the DBE ruling switching. We went in, we did a presentation, and they were like, wow, yeah, we can really use you. And matter of fact, we would like to see if you have some folks that we can do some staff augmentation, come in and train our people on this process, because we need to really understand the OUC system. We need to understand a lot of City of Chicago systems that we want you all to teach us. The DBE ruling came, and then they put a halt on everything. They said, well, we're no longer interested in using you all. We want to see what happens with the ruling first. And they kept kicking the can down the road. And then even recently, I just got a letter from them directly saying that, they're going to still wait on the recertifications, but there's no reason for our design team to use you all anymore. And this is a company that is not based in Chicago and not even based in the U.S.
Wow.
This company is overseas, and they came and they're doing work here, but there's no real intentionality. All the money, our tax-paying dollars that we're pumping into this project, and that the federal government is matching to help pump into this project, it's all going back overseas, right, to their home country. And it's interesting because we're looking around and we're like, the agency is supposed to be putting a little more pressure on them, but it seems like their hands are tied as well, because all of it falls under a DBE umbrella of work, in which, remove the DBE, you still should want local participation.
Absolutely. Yes.
You still should want to make sure that people from the community that spend dollars on these systems, these whether it's the Red Line, and they pay tax dollars into Cook County, the City of Chicago.
Yes.
You want to make sure that they participate on this, because it's a well-known fact that firms from the community hire locally, right? So that's the only way these dollars are going to get back. But yeah, that's just,
Yeah, I haven't thought about the impacts of doing business with international firms. So
yes,
that's a
yes.
good point.
And we have a lot of international firms taking up the infrastructure space. So, I think it's necessary. These certifications and these letters is necessary because without these certifications, there's no true intentionality in doing business with small businesses and local business from the community.
Agree.
Yeah. So, all right. So then many small businesses want to work for the city, but they feel intimidated with the process, especially when it comes to getting paid, right? And I had a conversation with someone and they were just talking about how they have to pay the employees, they have to pay the taxes, but then also they have to pay the unions, right? So it's
Right.
a bunch of different tax bodies just kind of pulling from them. Is there anything that is being done to attract small businesses and help them get over these hurdles? Financial is the biggest one for any small business. So is there anything you know of?
So I do know the Department of Procurement Services with the City of Chicago does an abundance of work to educate small firms, provide small firms with resources. There is a team of people to help you understand the contracting process, the certification process, the compliance process. I do know that working for the city or the government, from what I hear from small firms, can be a challenge. But I think building relationships with people like myself is helpful. I think there's an abundance of information available if you just look for it. So the city's website has tutorials, trainings, even understanding the municipal code, which shows that or tells us that if you're certified, you can get direct payments. Through
Yeah.
the chief procurement officer. A lot of people don't know that. And that's per the code of Chicago, the municipal code. So I think it's very beneficial to do work with the city. Once you start working with the city or the government, it becomes easier, I believe, once you understand the nuances and how to submit your bid or your proposal, how to do the proper research to make sure that you're competitive or you know what your competition is doing so you can, level the playing field on that end. But payments, I understand, are very important. And if you're a small firm, you need to be paid timely. But if you're certified, you can use that certification to leverage prompt payments.
Oh, it makes sense. You all hear it. You see it. There's opportunities there. There's opportunities out here for people to
Yes.
really get into contracting, makes a significant amount of money. But,
Yes.
you have to do your homework,
You
right?
have to do
I'm
your
going to say
homework.
you can't jump in it. Have you seen the RFQs and RFPs that's needed
Yes.
for these? Okay. So, yes.
I've done them personally.
Yes. So there's a lot of work and a lot of time that go into this. And it's not for the weak. So I would say do your homework, do your
Yes.
networking.
And understand, from my perspective, there's an abundance of work. So maybe you bid on one project and you don't get it, bid on the next one. Don't be discouraged because there's an abundance of work. There's an abundance of opportunity. I believe the government is the largest, spender, period. Also in Chicago, we're one of the largest construction firms as far as, maintaining our infrastructure and creating new infrastructure. So there's an abundance of work and there are a lot of resources and you just have to utilize them. And usually that starts with a phone call and being a squeaky wheel. If you don't get an answer, don't stop trying.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. I think a misconception, and this is my point of view, as a business owner, it's very hard to put together a proposal. Like it's a lot of time. And I think people really don't realize, especially the different agencies, how much effort goes into it. And then you put all of this effort into a proposal. I mean, it can be north of $10,000 if you have a team built out to actually put in the proposal, and then you don't get it. And then you go in, you request a debrief, make sure you request a debrief so you can go in and talk to them about it. And then you put in again, and then you don't get it. And then you put in again, and then you don't get it. It becomes a burnout for a lot of businesses, and especially small businesses. I think a lot of agencies and a lot of just different like organizations, they ask, hey, why is this group of people not coming to put in proposals for this project? And we're doing the outreach in the community. We want to bring businesses in, but no one's putting in the actual proposals. I've sat down in a lot of rooms and I've had to have this conversation. Is because we don't see a lot of businesses that look like us doing business with you already, number one. Number two, people don't really understand how difficult it is to put in these proposals. And to be a small business, everybody has to start from somewhere. But to be a small business, typically the owner has to put in all of those documents by themselves at one point in time when they first start. They have to put in every single document, every single exhibit, financial statement, bank statements, you name it, qualifications, history of your subs, history of you, license numbers. You have to go into database. You have to register for the Board of Elections. You have to do it all. There's a lot of things you have to do. And I think there's a misconception of how much work it takes to put into that. So is there anything that you all are doing to help that process, helps firms, smaller firms, put in proposals or teach them how to do the proposal?
Yes, there's a class. I've taught it at least 100 times probably in my course. Conducted the how to submit an RFP course, and it was usually interactive. I tried to give real life examples of things that I would see that would push vendors out, and also just go through the process of what you need to submit a qualification or a proposal. One thing that I think is helpful is partnering with other firms, be it a joint venture or maybe subcontracting with another firm to essentially get your foot in the door. I think that it's discouraging to hear you say that, you put in time and time and time again, and you never win the proposal. Well, again, I think conversations like this, having conversations with people who can make changes, who can talk to other people in agencies, where we can really start looking at these challenges and ensuring that, again, we are being equitable and not just awarding contracts to the same firms over and over and over again.
I have a whole team to do that, and it's still a lot. It's still overwhelming. I still, of course, have to lay my eyes on it, make sure it's good. But because I'm paying the team to, spend their time, do their due diligence, and put in effort to win this work, if we don't win after a few times of pursuing, the intentionality is probably not there. Some agencies we've reached out to and said, hey, before we put in a proposal, we would like to come in and do a presentation of what we are looking to propose, the type of work we do, the type of technology we come in using. We come in, even on our infrastructure projects, using 3D software. It shows you exactly where your facilities are in the present and in the future. A lot of utilities, from the water department to, you name it, telecom and electrical, they don't know where their structures are underground. So sometimes they have to go in and dig pothole or do some sort of spot check. They try and use Julie to get an estimate, but sometimes for these major reconstruction projects, you need to know exactly where your facilities are. We are using new technology to really have a geospatial graph and visual of where your underground facility is. And then it's a database that, we keep stored. So you'll always have it in the future if another project comes to that area. But we don't have even a chance sometimes to present this because some of the project managers and PMs and folks at agencies, they're just not open to even meeting and having these discussions and seeing these presentations. So yeah, it's tough. There's a lot of work to do. So what I'm really afraid of is once all of those MBE, WBE, all those programs go out the door, like you mentioned, partnering and joint venturing and getting your foot in the door through these programs, that may be obsolete for a lot of newer firms. Established firms, I think they'll do well. They'll continue to do business because they've been seen and they've been visible. And
they got the money and the resources to be seen and be visible.
They got the money and the resources, right? But the newer firms, which at one point we were newer, we didn't have the money and we didn't have the connections, the right networks with the agencies to, go in and do another project or to spearhead a project as a prime. We didn't have that initially. So I think it's very important.
It is. And I think these conversations are important. And I think it's, again, important for small firms to be vocal and reach out. And maybe you don't feel like you're being heard, but keep ringing the bell, send a letter, be creative, but it's important for people to hear what you're saying and understand the challenges of smaller companies.
Yeah, I'm as vocal as they come, and maybe to a fault. I think my mindset is God put me here, no man and no one put me here, right? And if it was up to others, I wouldn't be here. So why not be vocal and open the door for the next generation and other small business owners that want to get in the space? There's more than enough to go around for everyone.
Absolutely.
It's exactly what you mentioned is being equitable. I agree wholeheartedly. And I thank you for that advice because people need to hear it, right? Come directly from the source.
Yes.
You all need feedback in order to change your systems.
Yes.
Right. And update it and improve them. So this is amazing. Thank you so much for that. What does economic inclusion means to you personally on a personal level?
On a personal level, it means continuing the fight to ensure that programs like the MBE, WB, DBE programs are in place and that they're working and that we are getting firms certified. Yeah. And the goal of these programs are to turn subcontractors into prime contractors. Yeah. So that's one aspect of it for me. And then also working with people like you, the Pinpoint Scholars Foundation, because I think it's so important for youth and young people to understand what it means to be successful. I think about, myself growing up when we were told or talked about, what do you want to do? How are you going to be successful? You can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer. No one talked to me about trades or construction or being a public servant and working for the city or the government. So there's a lot of pathways to success. So for me, it starts with younger people. And I think that a lot of children aren't exposed to the trades or public service or just different pathways to success, being an entrepreneur, starting your own business. So that's how I'm working towards ensuring that our community and, the people of Chicago actually benefit all the rewards of Chicago and not just the wealthy.
Yes. Equity and inclusion. So that's dope. Number one, I am thankful to have you on the board of Pinpoint Scholars Foundation. Even further than that, I'm just blessed to have met you, right?
Same.
I met you at an event. I was at an event, I set up a booth and a table, and I saw you and we had conversation. I told you about my business. You told me about the opportunities with the city, and I said, okay, well, let's connect and let's stay connected. But even bigger than that and looking at this whole thing in totality, I can tell we both wanted the same thing. We both wanted to make an impact in our communities and with the youth. So, of course, after talking to you and just really just seeing your passion to help people, because you didn't know me. I mean, you didn't really have to engage the way you did, but we were able to have genuine conversations. And then you joined the Pinpoint Scholars Foundation, right? So now you sit on the board to help the next generation. And with that, I am just beyond happy and excited to have you on board. Your energy, your presence, and really your institutional knowledge of what needs to be done in order to impact the next community is huge. What made you join the foundation?
Well, as you said, it was really you. So we met at a event. And I saw that although, we have different paths in our careers, our goals are aligned and the same. So I was very impressed with what you're doing and definitely, over the years have worked with youth, and I was just wanted to work with you and was impressed with what you're doing. And your team is, very phenomenal.
Thank you.
It's an impressive team.
Wonderful. Thank you. I am beyond grateful to have you on the board, just so you know.
Thank you
just know that. Thank you for agreeing, right? Because, the knowledge you bring, the experience, and even just your presence, right? I know there's challenges you face as a Black woman coming through this system, but you are actually opening the doors and being the perfect example for the next generation. So, and that's our goal at Pinpoint Scholars Foundation, to be visible representations of success and what that could look like. It can come in different forms, different sizes, different shapes, right? But as long as you're making yourself available and accessible to the next generation, that's what we're here to do. So I really appreciate you. I thank you so much for joining me on this show today. If anyone wants to get in touch with you or, want to connect, how do they go about doing that?
I'm available by phone or email. I think, can you drop it?
Okay. We'll add it. We'll add it. Yeah, we'll add, all your contact information. Yes. Or your maybe LinkedIn as well. Please connect. She dropped some great gems. One of the most approachable, down-to-earth person I've met in my life. And of course, think that is really from a strong background of faith and just knowing, your purpose. So I thank you for helping us and being here today, having this important conversation, just to make improvements in our community, in the system of government, and just to really create a better future for us to live in. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right,
and thank you for your work in leadership and spearheading these opportunities.
For sure, we got work to do, but we're going to do it. I'm glad to have you on the team to do it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.